When you pay $10 for a hotel room, you don't expect a night at the Ritz, but you do expect something safe. And that's exactly what 6 young tourists in Sydney believed when they checked into a backpackers hostel in September last year. It was a fatal mistake. The place was simply a fire trap. As a coroner's inquiry revealed, it wasn't just a case of being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Slack officials, bad laws and greed all played a part. Now, you might like to think it could never happen again, but as we show, it could. Jacinda Hill and Alan Nielsen, a young couple in love. Together they travelled the world, through Asia and then up to Alan's parents in Denmark. But they kept in touch with home.
I hope everyone is fine down there, and say hello to the rest of the family. And
Alan bought me a really lovely necklace, which is a beautiful surprise. It's like a pearl, except it's pitch black.
Hopefully we'll see again one day. All the best.
One week before their wedding day, Jacinda and Alan died. They were together in room 15 of the Downunder Hotel.
I mean, fires do happen, but they didn't need to die.
Which window did you get out of? It's up there.
For Jacinda's mother, June, and Alan's brother, Yen, the memories still burn. Yen was asleep in the Downunder when the fire broke out, but he escaped.
I couldn't believe that it could happen in Sydney. And it wasn't until I went to the courts and heard all the evidence that I came to the conclusion that they didn't just die, they were killed through negligence.
According to the official inquiry, it all began with a lighted cigarette and a sofa, something like this. Now, normally, that fire could have been expected to have spread no further. But at the Downunder Hotel, there was plenty to burn, including a ground floor office and a staircase lined with plywood. They went up like that. Now, according to the report, the temperature built to 800 degrees centigrade in just 4 minutes, and that was as the building filled with poisonous smoke. There was only one exit, and that was the burning staircase. June Hill was so desperate to find out the truth of what happened to her daughter that she flew to Australia from New Zealand for the inquest. Why did you attend all the coroner's hearings?
Because I wanted to know how 6 people could die in Sydney. Especially when Jacinda and Alan had been travelling around in third world countries and come safely through it all. When they arrived on the Friday, we both said to each other, we don't have to worry anymore. It's safe now. But they weren't safe, were they?
The fire that killed Jacinda Hill and Alan Nielsen may have been ignited by a stray cigarette, but in a sense it had all begun 7 years before. This is the fire brigade report on the building, written right back in 1983. And it specifically says, no office on the ground floor and nothing in the foyer that might burn, like a sofa or like wood panelling on a staircase. It also calls for a second exit. Written 7 years before the fire, it proved to be deadly accurate. So who do you consider responsible for your daughter's death?
The council.
June Hill's anger is understandable when you look at the history of the building. May 1983. The council gives the owners 9 months to put their house in order. 2 years later, the council prosecutes, but then drops the charges and issues another fire order. Another year passes, the building has a new owner, so the council now has to issue a new fire order. Once again, 9 months to comply. 3 more years. The work still isn't finished, and 6 people die. So delay, delay, delay for 7 long years. And that's not all. Just 3 weeks before the fire, an officer from the South Sydney Council pays a visit to the Downunder, and he writes a report where he notes the 3 instances where fire regulations were being disobeyed: the sofa, the office, and the staircase. These were later shown to be the cause of the fire becoming an inferno. Now, what happened to this fellow's report? It was simply filed away.
More could have been done by the previous administration.
South Sydney Mayor Vic Smith admits the council was negligent, but he says it has no clear power to order the immediate closure of a fire trap.
Council still does not have any powers under the Act to immediately close down these premises where there are extreme fire risks. The owners have 9 months in which to comply with council's notices. They appeal to the court. The court gives them an extension of time to carry out those repairs. And the way I see it is that we're on a merry-go-round.
So who owns the Downunder building? From 1983 to 1986, Cougar Acceptance Corporation. From 1986, Vendomatic Proprietary Limited. Different company names, but all the time the same man behind them. Abe Saffron.
Any comment, Mr. Saffron?
Convicted tax cheat. How much would it have cost Saffron to fully comply with the fire orders?
I'd say probably, including costs of relocation, et cetera, of the office, probably about $5,000.
$5,000.
Yes.
Hamish McLennan is an associate professor at Sydney's Institute of Technology. He's a specialist on fire laws.
I don't believe that a hostel should be granted its licence when the people who would be staying in a hotel like that would be at risk.
It's now almost 12 months since Jacinda, Alan, and the 4 others died at the Downunder. Now, you might have thought that in that time, those deaths would have produced a clean-up of the hostels around here. I mean, either make them safe or shut them down. But no. Take this place, Brown Lodge. It's not 200 metres from the Downunder. A converted double-terrace house. It now takes up to 50 young tourists. We called in our expert, Hamish McLennan, to make a secret inspection.
The things in this room that could burn are the 3 mattresses, the chair seat, the whole chair in fact, the timber cupboard over there, the timber bench up close to the window, the frames grow in size up to the ceiling, it spreads across the ceiling, and you'll notice there is a hole around the light bulb, hence you have a fire burning in the cavity. It would appear that this whole room could be involved in a fire within 3 minutes. This door is not a fire door. We have very thin timber panels. Here is a hole in the door frame. The fire could penetrate into this hole. It will go through this door into the stairs, and we have got 4 stories worth of building opening out into that stair. As you can see through the window, 2 stories clear drop to the ground, and we have 3 people in the room at risk.
Is it a fair summary of that room, then, to describe it as a fire trap?
I would say that it's definitely an unacceptable risk and it's in that condition, yes.
How are you? Not bad. Richard Carlton from 60 Minutes. The men who own Brome Lodge weren't exactly happy to see us on their doorstep. Now, you two own this backpackers setup. Yeah. Do you reckon this place is safe? They say that the council knows what's going on.
Well, we've had the council come through and they've said it's one of the better ones, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but the point is that there are people who will claim your place is unsafe tonight and you've got people staying there.
Well, if you want to take it to that line, yeah, okay, it's unsafe, right? No one's going to really deny it. You only have to take your cameras through anything to find out.
Well, virtually,
what the council has
you could say they're all fire traps, and if you want to go to the line on it, wouldn't it, Joe? What do you reckon?
So you've got to understand, Richard.
Do you agree with him that they're all fire traps?
Yeah, you can say virtually everyone, in a way. Yeah, like, they're old buildings. You know, even new buildings burn down.
And once again, it's a question of dollars and cents against lives.
Right. We couldn't afford, right, to put all the extra fire requirements because it's, you know, you're not getting $150 a night for a room.
If you can't afford the fire requirements, then you're unsafe, therefore you should be closed down.
Yeah, but it's a pretty hard situation when you put yourselves in when you got mortgages. Oh look, I understand.
Look, tell that to the family of the 6 people who are dead from the place up the road.
Look, I'm not looking for an argument. You know, I'm just trying to explain.
Well, you told me that your place is unsafe. I'll give you an argument.
No, so you're trying to put words in my mouth.
No, you said it was unsafe.
Yeah. All right. Look,
and yet you're in business. What sort of businessman are you?
You can go to any other place. Look, even 5-star hotels burn down.
We have drawn the council's attention to the powers that exist and told them to get their act together and use those powers. And
David Hay is the minister responsible for fire safety laws. He promised swift action to prevent another disaster.
What I've done, Mr. Carlton, is to speak to the coroner and ask him what exactly they meant. You see, he talked of...
Can I take his initial recommendation? It's quite clear what it means. At least 2 fire exits in all buildings of more than a single story, which provides sleeping accommodation for 8 people or more. Has that been done in this city?
That hasn't, because that's not necessarily what would meet his objectives, and he's made that clear to me in the discussion I had with him.
Does a Downunder hostel need 2 fire exits or not, as the coroner says?
That matter is being looked at by the advisory group, and the coroner is aware of this.
He also recommended automatic sprinkler systems in hostels of that kind up at King's Cross. Has anything been done about that?
That exactly, as the other matters we've talked about, is being reviewed as a proper process by the Building Advisory Committee.
Talk, and yet more talk. Meanwhile, people are staying at fire traps with no idea how safe or dangerous the buildings are.
If a building is unsafe and has a fire order against it, do you know that I, as a member of the public, am not allowed to know about that? It's secret.
Well, I'm glad you've raised that matter. If that is indeed the case, and it's the first time that that's been raised with me, I'll address that too.
The owners, the bureaucrats and the politicians might like to forget what happened at the Downunder, but June Hill certainly can't.
Jacinda and Alan were going to be living with us. The house was going to be full of fun and laughter. We were looking forward to them being married and having children and keeping contact. There's going to be none of that.
The New South Wales coroner, Mr. Kevin Waller, found that, quote, just about everybody involved with the Downunder had been negligent. The council had allowed a system to emerge that was wholly inadequate, and the owner, Abe Saffron, he had taken advantage of that. Mr. Saffron did not take up our offer of an interview.
Afternoon in Sydney, a man was arrested and charged with the murder of Jacinda Hill, Alan Nielsen and the 4 other travellers who perished in the fire at the Downunder Hotel. The 28-year-old man will appear in a Sydney court tomorrow, charged with multiple murder. He'll also face more than 100 charges of arson and malicious damage after a spate of fires in the inner city area of Sydney.
And 149 arson-related charges. The most serious charges relate to 2 attacks on the Downunder Backpackers Hotel in King's Cross. A 25-year-old Aucklander was among 6 tourists who died.
Cause of the tragedy. For Jan Nielsen, who lost his brother Alan in the fire, the inquest has meant travelling from Denmark to relive the horror of that September morning.
I was in the hostel myself that night, in that fire, but I managed to get out.
Also taking part in the inquest, the New Zealand parents of Jacinda Hill. She and Alan Nielsen were engaged to be married.
We have to go through the details for Jacinda and Alan's sake. We have to know for their sake.
This morning, 2 security guards who were the first to answer the hostel's fire alarm described how the blaze began as a small outbreak on a sofa in the foyer where a backpacker was earlier seen reading a newspaper. But Deke Jurek said on opening the front door, the fire raced across the roof and across the floor. It just went woof and increased in size. Asked by Mrs. Hill if he could have warned the backpackers upstairs, Jurek replied, "I suppose so, perhaps. At the time, I guess, I didn't want to run headfirst into a fire." Later, Durek's partner, Peter Castle, told the inquest, "We could feel the heat coming towards us. That's why we raced out." The inquest was told that 2 fire doors on the first floor landing of the hostel were often left open for the comfort of guests. The exits were unmarked and neither guard received specific instructions to keep the doors closed. According to fire brigade witnesses, the flames spiralled upwards through the building stairwell. Brad Schmidt, National 9.
He couldn't decide whether or not it was deliberate. City Coroner Kevin Waller today delivered widespread condemnation over the King's Cross backpackers' hostel fire. Handing down an open finding in the hostel fire inquest, Mr. Waller said there was negligence by the local council and the owners and managers of the Downunder hostel.
46 people escaped as fire raged through the Downunder hostel, but 6 foreign tourists were trapped in their rooms and died. After an 11-day inquest, Coroner Kevin Waller has found the fire started in a couch in the foyer and has suggested it may have been the result of a discarded cigarette or match. This British experiment was presented to the court as evidence of how the flames could have spread through the building. Mr. Waller has found fire safety precautions were very poor and has labelled almost everyone associated with the hostel as negligent. The South Sydney Council, the management and owners, Abe and Doreen Saffron, were all criticised. So too were the onlookers in King's Cross who tried to climb ladders and catcalled while people were dying inside. The coroner has made a series of recommendations giving the fire brigade more power to inspect hostels and making sprinklers and live-in caretakers compulsory. Outside the court, the mothers of victims comforted one another.
Somebody's got to be blamed for losing my son, haven't they? And June's daughter and all the 6 of them.
The hostel manager had little to say.
I'm not in the business anymore.
Danish tourist Jan Nielsen escaped the flames but lost his brother. He's welcomed the coroner's findings.
If they could see us now, they would say, good work.
Last year's King's Cross hostel fire. Kevin Waller criticised the owners and management of the Downunder Backpackers Hostel and also local authorities responsible for fire prevention. He now wants the fire brigade to have more power to inspect such buildings.
It was an early morning tragedy that, according to the coroner, need not have happened. What began as possibly a cigarette smouldering on a downstairs lounge was able to spread, he said, only through negligence. The result, 6 young foreign tourists dead. Having investigated whether the fire was accidental or deliberately lit, Mr. Waller said there was insufficient evidence to prove either. What was clear, he said, was why, once started, the fire wasn't stopped until too late. The reasons: fire doors deliberately held open and therefore useless, fire extinguishers out of reach, no sprinkler system, no indoor alarm, and no one in authority on duty. The coroner criticised the hostel management, the Saffron company that owns the building, and the councils of both Sydney City and South Sydney. He said the council's enforcement of fire regulations was wholly inadequate. Among Mr. Waller's many recommendations, that councils be given a clear power to close such buildings, and the fire brigade get a far greater role in inspecting them.
Well, the fire brigade have always maintained that they do know fire safety features, and so this does give some support to that.
For relatives today, a feeling that the victims would feel something had been achieved.
If they could see us now, they would say, good work.
I do hope that the recommendations that he has made will come into effect and not take years.
The coroner was distinctly unimpressed by the crowd that gathered to watch the fire. They jeered firemen, he said, and catcalled survivors, even as inside people were dying.
And they're not going to come back.
Just look